We have seen many ghosts on this channel, but today we are going to ancient Egypt for one story of a ghost that is still searching for rest even after 3,000 years. Welcome to my channel. Our story comes from ancient Thebes and was recorded on an actual ancient Egyptian scroll, Papyrus 12, 1922. This is the tale of the ghost of Khonsemhab. Our story begins in the Theban necropolis, a burial ground on the west bank of the Nile across from the great city of Thebes. Here among the grand tombs of the kings and nobles of Egypt lie the less grand tombs of common folk like yourself and me. There is nothing particularly interesting here until one night when a high priest named Khonsemhab is passing through the necropolis and he hears chains dragging metal moans and disembodied cries. Now Khonsemhab, being a man of science and reason, is a little freaked out by this, and as the sound seems to come from the direction of the temple of Anubis, he decides to go investigate. But upon reaching the temple, he finds nothing. However, he does notice a newly dug grave nearby and thinks perhaps some poor person was buried there hastily during the night. So he goes over to check it out. As he approaches, he hears a voice. The ghost inside the tomb calls out to the priest saying, "O most excellent master, come and help me, for I am suffering much. My body is emaciated, my tomb has been desecrated, and my bones scattered." Of course, Khonsemhab, being a good, upstanding priest, feels compelled to help, and asks who is it that needs such assistance. The shade replies that his name is Nebusemekh. He was once an official under the pharaohs Neb-Petra-Mentuhotep and Wahunk, whom we know were rulers of the 17th dynasty around the year 1500 BCE. So Khonsemhab knows exactly who this guy is. Now you see, the thing about ancient Egyptian society is that if you weren't a pharaoh, your tomb wasn't all that special. In fact, your tomb was likely made of mud brick, which would degrade very quickly and wouldn't even last a few hundred years. So when someone was digging a new grave, they might accidentally dig up someone else's remains and desecrate their tomb. In modern terms, imagine if every time someone dug a new backyard swimming pool, there was a chance they would accidentally unearth and destroy some ancient Roman skeleton. It happens pretty often. Just ask my buddy Gary over there. But I digress. As you can imagine, having your bones scattered and your tomb destroyed was considered a very bad thing. It was actually a common belief in Egypt that proper burial was necessary for the safe passage of the soul into the afterlife. If you didn't receive the proper burial, your spirit could become trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead and wander the earth as a ghost, which is precisely what Nebu seems to be doing. And so the next day, Khonsemhab goes back to the necropolis and meets the ghost again. And seeing how sad and pitiful the shade is, he agrees to help rebuild the man's tomb. But first, he needs to consult the Oracle of Thebes to make sure this is even possible. For as we learned from our previous stories, the Egyptian underworld was not a place you wanted to poke around in. You had to be very careful about messing with ghosts or opening certain tombs. There was a real risk of letting demons and evil spirits loose into the world. So before agreeing to help, Khonsemhab goes to the temple of the oracle and asks, "Should I undertake the restoration of Nebuchadrezzar's tomb?" And the god tells him, "Do it. You will not do anything wrong." With divine permission, Khonsemhab returns to the necropolis and begins the arduous task of rebuilding the tomb. Each morning he brings the materials, and each evening he performs a funerary ritual for the shade. For 70 days he works on the tomb. And on the 71st day, just as the sun rises, he finishes the final inscription and prayer. Then he returns that evening to perform the final funerary rite. And there he sees the ghost once more. Nebu thanks the priest for restoring his tomb and tells him that now his soul can finally move on to the afterlife. Then, taking the form of a scarab beetle, he disappears. Not to be dramatic or anything, but that was literally the last anyone ever saw of him. The spirit of Nebuchadnezzar is gone. No one ever found the actual remains of the historical figure either. All that exists today are these ancient papyrus scrolls telling the story. But hey, at least we got this cool art out of the deal, right? Look, even in death, respect matters. Imagine if you died and someone built a Walmart on top of your grave. You too might become a restless spirit haunting the night. Thanks for watching. See you next time. We've heard a lot of ghost stories from around the world, but today let's hear some ghost stories from Egyptian mythology, specifically 3 tales from the underworld that will keep you up at night. Click the link above or below to watch. Thanks for watching.